Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, distinguished guests, speakers, moderators, and panelists. Welcome to the AIM, to the Annual Investment Forum here in Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates. Abu Dhabi is the pearl of the Arab Gulf, and here the UAE economy managed to transform their economy in mere decades from commodities and natural resources-based economy into a global hub for innovation, trade, and attracting the best human capital. And as the Sheikh Zayed, the father and the founder of the UAE, once said, those who don't know their past and their history cannot get the maximum out of their future and present. And exactly this is the vision that transformed the UAE. Now we are officially kicking off and starting our global trade portfolio. My name is Lamia Miligi. I come from Egypt, and my background is international cooperation and development. I work for the UN in Egypt, in Cairo, and it's my honor and my pleasure to host you and to be the MC over the coming 3 days for the global trade portfolio. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's start and begin with our first session for the day. It's my pleasure to introduce the panel under the title of Leaders Panel, and it is about balancing local and global dynamics of global trade and attraction of FDI. In this regard, I would like to welcome our moderator of the session, our dear colleague Salim Said. He's from the business editor at the National News of the United Arab Emirates. Salim, please come to the stage and then introduce the dear panelists so we can benefit from their experience. Thank you so much.
Hello. There we go. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending this panel. This is a very important discussion, especially given today's developments, along with the year when it comes to talking about trade and when talking about also FDI, which leads to economic growth globally. So I'd like to introduce our esteemed guests. We'll start with Nan Lee Collins, Senior Director, Division on Investment and Enterprise, UN Trade and Development. Please welcome to the stage. His Excellency Maud A.K. Seka, the Deputy Minister, Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment, Gambia. Latifa Elbou Abdelawi, Director General, ICDT, Islamic Center for Development of Trade. His Excellency Maxim Reshetnikov, Minister of Economic Development, the Russian Federation. His Excellency Wamkele Mene, Secretary General, African Continental Free Trade Area. His Excellency Sultan Rahim Zoda, Minister of Investment and Chairman of the State Committee on Investment and State Property Management of the Republic of Tajikistan. And last but not least, Dr. Mohammed Al-Sahili, CEO, Medland Hospital. So as you can see, we have quite a number of people on stage discussing a very important topic and speaking to decision makers when it comes to global trade, when it comes to FDI and economic growth. So I'd like to start with you, Nanli, in terms of, given today's developments, given the recent talks about tariffs and trade wars and such, how would you actually characterize today's global trade and its connection to the FDI landscape?
Thank you. Really glad to be here. Okay. So maybe I'll share three perspectives in a very short time. First, if we look at the long-term investment trends, since 2007, the financial crisis, while the GDP has been growing at 3 to 5%, trade has been growing annually between 5 to 8%, FDI has not been growing. FDI has been stagnating since the financial crisis from 2007. And now, with the worsening geopolitics, with the tariff, with the protectionism, this trend is getting worse, right? Last year, we published a report on global fracturing. If you Google UNCTAD fracturing, you will see how this regional supply chain, global supply chain are shifting, and how our countries are affected by all these mega trends. And we are living a very fractured world in terms of investment, value chain, and production pattern. So this is the first thing I want to say. Second, there are huge regional disparities. Globally, we are seeing the overall, last year we published the World Investment Report, right? So our division is the UN, in the UN is responsible for the World Investment Report. And in our World Investment Report last year, we pointed out the FDI last year dropped already 10%, right? This year we will publish in June in Spain at the fourth Financing for Development conference, and we're not seeing a better trend. So we will release it at that time, so you will see the latest number. But from last year's number, we are seeing the global FDI dropping 10%, right? And for regions like Africa, where in total they only attract about 3% of global FDI, right? But there are also high-performing. But of course, there's also high-performing regions like ASEAN. ASEAN region has really been on the growth trajectory, right? So we're seeing the importance of regional integration, regional value chain, and in Africa, the North Africa side, Morocco, where they are closer to the EU, are growing, right? So it's closer geography, location to EU, and better bilateral relations. These are factors affecting the global investment trends. But globally, I mean, we see a lot of regional disparities. Only very few countries, India, US, ASEAN regions are growing. Most of the world are suffering from the dropping of FDI, right? Thirdly, lastly, I want to talk about is the sectoral trends. We talk about sustainable development in the UN. However, the investment in sustainable development areas are also dropping significantly. So from last year, the investment needed in agriculture, for example, dropped 30%. Water sanitation, again, very key areas, particularly for Africa, also dropped close to 30%. The growth area is just renewable energy, right? Digital economy. So we can talk more about digital economy, which is also our this year's World Investment Report, which we can discuss maybe later. But overall, just to say, the picture is quite depressing, both from the overall global trends and also the sustainable development trends, where we need the capital flow to the least developed countries. That's not happening. To the key sectors that help people's lives, and that's not happening. So it's really concerning, and we're getting into a worse-off area. That's my opening point.
Well, thank you so much, and for your candid response. And I think even though it is devastating and maybe not positive news, but it's something that needs addressing, and that's why we're here today to have this conversation. And looking at a projection of 10%, less FDI, as a projection for this year is not encouraging. And as you said, it impacts across industries in probably larger volumes. So, Your Excellency Wamkele, can you tell us about how the change, like with these tariffs and such, like a change in these trade agreements, and the impact that it's going to have on FDI? How do you see that impacting FDI growth, globally, especially in on the African continent?
Well, thank you very much for inviting us. Well, we certainly, in my view, will see a materially adverse impact on investment flows, particularly investment flows to developing countries and African countries in particular, as a result of this current state of geopolitics and geoeconomics. What we are seeing is weaponization of trade policy. We are seeing economic nationalism, investment nationalism, and all of these are intended to provide what we are told is industrial support in the United States to particular industries. Now, the the attempt to enable competitiveness through trade weaponization of trade policy, in my view, is not going to work. Industries that have not been competitive over the last 10, 20, 30 years are not going to all of a sudden become competitive on the back of increased tariffs. There's got to be an attempt to solve the underlying competitiveness issues that arise in order to get industry to be competitive. I think the point that our colleague made is absolutely correct. And so in this era of compelled directions of investment, not based on where returns are, but compelled movement of investment, I see that many countries, developing countries, will, I would suggest, will see a reduction in flows of investment because they are being compelled, because the direction of investment is now being compelled to move towards a particular country instead of following market dynamics around the world. The second point is we are going to see, in my estimation, a disruption in global supply chains because, again, there is a directive that if you don't establish your supply chains in our country, you are going to see increased tariffs on your products. Over the last 30 years, supply chains have been established across the world based on industrial competitiveness of countries, based on population size, based on demand. All of these are market factors. We have not seen use of tariff and industrial policy to direct how supply chains are established and where. So all of this will have a negative impact on the flow of the ease and the free flow of foreign direct investment. The continent of Africa, I think for us, this is an opportunity. It is an opportunity because we have a market of 1.4 billion people that by the year 2050 is projected to be close to 16.2 trillion United States dollars, with the youngest working force in the world. It is a wake-up call because we now have to focus on building the domestic market in Africa, building our capability to produce, manufacture, and establish alternative supply chains on the continent of Africa. We can no longer rely on one country for this purpose. So this crisis, yes, it is a crisis in the short term, but I believe in the medium to long term, where we deploy the right policy tools, we will emerge from this economically and in terms of investment as a stronger investment destination because the market size is there, the market dynamics are there. The continent of Africa has challenges, yes, of course, but it is still the second most dynamic and the second fastest growing investment destination in the world after Asia. And so, to answer your question, I don't believe that the weaponization of trade policy will help one country. I do believe that there will be, in the short term, an adverse impact on us, but we will have to remodel our investment landscape, which we have begun to do, and we will have to remodel our industrial capabilities as a continent.
Great, thank you so much. And I think you hit the nail on the head by saying that this isn't about responding to market dynamics, it's about politics, interjecting in policy and affecting trade and in creating these repercussions. So the question is, which I believe you alluded to as well, is how do you respond to this? And Your Excellency Maxime, I think this is something that you have faced. Russia has faced US and European sanctions for years and faced this shift in global trade earlier and more intensely than others. How did the Russian economy respond to the external challenges and volatility in trading? And what did you do to attract FDI?
Dear colleagues and guests, I am happy to welcome you here today And I would like to thank the Ministry of Economy of United Arab Emirates for the invitation. Salim, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Indeed, Russia has faced economic sanctions as well as more than 20 other countries in the world. Despite unprecedented pressure, Russia has adapted to the challenges. The Russian economy has been steadily growing for the last 2 years and average GDP 4.1%. Investments grew almost by 9% last year, primarily in transport sector, industrial manufacturing and tourism infrastructure. The basis of growth is domestic investment and consumer demand. How did we achieve it? Firstly, the government takes timely and systematic measures. We as the Ministry of Economic Development keeps upgrading and fine-tuning measures of supporting for local and foreign investors. We are providing state guarantees for long-term investment projects. Last year, we expanded public-private partnership investment mechanism to industry and space sector, this year to healthcare. We supervise 53 special economic zones, providing a range of preferences for investors. Over 100 foreign residents from 33 countries are running their business in special economic zones in Russia. The Ministry of Finance effectively conducts budgetary policy. We have very moderate budget deficit, and the Central Bank of Russia ensures the stability of our financial system. Secondly, Russia remains an open market economy. We equally protect the rights of Russian and foreign investors. We update agreements on the promotion and mutual protection of investments using the best international practices. Such agreements are already in force with almost 30 countries of the Global South. New opportunities are opening for investors interested in Russian markets. We expect to collaborate with partners on projects in aviation and shipbuildings, radio electronics, chemistry, transport, agriculture, engineering, housing and utilities, food and grocery production, tourism and IT. Russia is ready to share its world-class expertise in peaceful use of nuclear energy, space technology, cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. The most prominent investment proposals of Russian regions are presented here at the AM Congress, and I invite all of you to visit our stands. Now I suppose it's the right time to join projects, of course, in such a strange time and in such a complicated times, using new opportunities. Of course, all changes is new opportunities. So I suppose now it's a good time for FDI, but of course we should reinvent it. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And definitely, it's a large endeavor to endure. And as you said, it's having devastating effects. You've definitely had the experience in terms of being able to accommodate to that and to build your own industries locally, finding new partners. As His Excellency Wamkela also said, it's not about, when you face a crisis like this, it's about finding new partners to work with, new alliances, and to reciprocate, to fill the gap. And looking at specific industries, namely, as you had said, looking at healthcare, for example, the US on the political side as well has pulled out of the World Health Organization. So having a devastating impact on global health. So Dr. Mohammed, what has that impact been? How do you measure it in terms of such geopolitical moves impacting global industries such as healthcare?
Thank you, Salim, for the question. Of course, the U.S. withdrawal from WHO effective January 2025 has a huge impact on the overall global public health. As you know, the U.S. accounts for approximately 18% of the budget, which is around $6.8 billion biennial. So that's $600 million a year. I think the effect falls on three major points. First, if we take the example of the health programs, for example, in terms of vaccinations, we all know that the WHO has a program for vaccinations. For example, for polio, it has been reduced from 350,000 cases in the 80s to less than 100 nowadays. So without a support, we are talking about a 21% budget cut, which may cost a lot of lives, mainly in the poorest regions. Second, the global health security will take a huge hit. Why? Because if we look at the flu tracking system, which protects around 30,000 elderly US annually, if we don't have a support for the WHO, this will definitely have an involvement on the mass data in terms of health programs, and especially also if we look at the fact that the climate does shift diseases from one area to another. Recently we have the H5N1. So that will also lead to a huge problem. The third point that I would like to address is the fact that this will also hit the US itself, the United States. Why? Because by quitting WHO, there will be no say in health regulations, global health regulations, or access to global pathogen data. And we all know that CDC preparedness does rely on those information. So obviously China can chip in. We can see also a shift in the mindset of WHO, and I think that's a call for WHO to look into alternatives for a fruitful, sustainable future. So in summary, if I would like to resume that, I would say that going alone, it will only mean that we will all face major risks in the future, and therefore it may be also a wake-up call, as I said, for everyone to look into new business models to run the global public healthcare system.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And again, on the idea of finding solutions to compensate for the loss taking place, I think technology has also played a significant role in that. And I'd like to extend this question to Your Excellency Sultan in terms of how the rise of digital services and automation, including AI, is helping to build this infrastructure maybe to fill in the gap. Would you please expand on that? It's not working? Is the mic on itself, or? Would you mind maybe switching with Dr. Muhammad?
No, it's okay, I guess.
Yeah? Or if the tech staff can bring another microphone to the stage, please.
Salim, sorry, the sound is not so good. You were asking about the policy shift or about the AI issues?
No, and looking at solutions, looking at how technology and AI can play a role in finding a solution for these policy shifts.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I mean that when we are talking about the AI policy and digitalization, it really impacts now the investments in infrastructure. While the digitalization and AI technology impact on the infrastructure which relates to providing the services, real estate, etc. At the same time, from our point of understanding that physical infrastructure is really needed, because with AI, all digital technologies, you cannot generate electricity, for example, or provide food, water, and the other services, transport services. That's why in parallel with digitalization and the introduction of the AI technology, still especially in the emerging economies like Tajikistan, we have to pay a lot of attention to physical infrastructure. And this case of in Tajikistan, for example, we are implementing the big infrastructure project Rogun HPP, 3,600 megawatt capacity, which will provide the green energy not only for Tajikistan but for the countries around Tajikistan in Central Asia, and also we are connecting with Pakistan and Afghanistan through the Casa Southern project. This is a real opportunity for the future development of the nations around Tajikistan, inside of Tajikistan, but as well for further development of the digitalization and AI, which requires more and more electricity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'll get back to the technology side of things, but I do want to go to it still as a solution, for addressing these trade policies and shifting more towards, as we had discussed already, regionalism and localization. Sorry. So many countries are claiming to rely less on traditional partners as a result, of these tariffs and such and other reasons, and are shifting towards new partners in regional trade blocs. Can you discuss, Your Excellency Mod Eke Seka, in terms of what is the impact of this realignment?
Yeah, thank you very much. I will also stand on existing protocol to thank the people of UAE for inviting us to this beautiful place and for this forum. Yeah, the shifts in trade.
Can I just ask you to get closer to the microphone so the audience
okay,
can hear?
sorry.
Thank you.
The shifts in trade dynamics from reliance on international partners to strategic alignment with regional trading blocs is significantly impacting FDI. And for instance, this realignment presents both an opportunity and policy imperatives for many countries, particularly Gambia.
I'm sorry, I still think the microphone is away from you.
It's still away. Okay, sorry.
Sorry about it. Just want to make sure everyone can hear your answer. Perfect. Speak now.
Hello,
Perfect.
is okay?
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I think one is the repositioning for regional investments. Developing countries are increasingly attractive as strategic hubs due to cost efficiency and demography. We have a youthful population, and that youthful population plus the mineral resources that we have, particularly in Africa, are centers of attraction for investments. So trading blocks offer consolidated market access and enhancing FDI appeal. So trade policy as a confidence signal, because investment confidence hinges on policy transparency and stability. And what we are seeing recently with all these pronouncements, you wake up every morning, there's a new pronouncement. It's a big and a wrong signal to the market. So the Gambia's trade reforms and AFCFT alignment send a strong positive signal to this effect. Then you have supply chain shifts creating opportunities. As firms diversify away from Asia-centric models, African countries with emerging logistics and stable climates, like the Gambia, are likely to be centers of attraction for FDI. So the role of ICT and innovation hubs, with ICTD Africa expanding digital capacity, the Gambia is investing in broadband, digital entrepreneurship, and e-governance, attracting digital FDI. So finally, partnerships and institutional preparedness. Through investment promotion reforms and strategic sector incentives, the Gambia is enhancing institutional capacity, developing also financial packages that will be attractive to other partners. In conclusion, the regional alignment and thoughtful trade policy can transform frontier economies like the Gambia into reliable destinations for FDI. By responding to supply chain shifts, prioritizing investment readiness, and supporting innovation, countries can turn global realignment into inclusive growth opportunities. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I think you bring up the good point of cooperation yields more results than dividing with tariffs and such policies. And Latif, I'll direct this to you because that's what a lot of economic nationalism and protectionist types of policies do. Can you lay the groundwork for us in describing what impact have these policies had on influencing cross-border investments by creating more dividing type policy versus a cooperative one, with their regional partnerships?
Thank you, Salim.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to thank organizers.
And I'm sorry, the same thing with the mic, if you don't mind,
Okay.
Turbit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would like first to thank organizer for inviting me to this very relevant panel. Obviously, protectionism and nationalism are causing enormous damages and disruption in trade globally. These impacts will be on investment, on trade facilitation, on consumer also applying tariffs on products will impact consumer and then investment also. So we are living a fragmentation of global economy, value chains. Global value chain are also living a fragmentation at global level. This is why, as regional organization, we need to transform this global challenge on regional opportunities. And as OIC member states, we are about more than 57 countries in the world. We need to seize this opportunity at the regional level by working more and more together by developing our regional value chains that will be more resilient, independent of the global value chains. Why we will do that? By promoting investment intra-OIC, especially in countries that present a highest potential of investment, especially in Africa. In OIC, we are 27 African countries that present a very, very high level of promotion of potential investments. So while these African countries present potential of investments, other OIC member countries, especially Arab countries, present a high level of finance, fund, and technology expertise. So working together will enable us to develop a more resilient regional value chain that will be enabled to address this situation. And also we need to be proactive for the maybe next crisis that we will probably meet in the future, given the situation we are living now with what is happening in the world, new tariffs, major tariffs, but also no tariffs measure. We need to specify that also we are living no tariffs measure that impact deeply trade and investment in developing countries, especially in African countries.
No, definitely. And I think you also touched on a key point, which is how this is going to affect the everyday person, the consumer as well. That's still immeasurable yet. I mean, we talked about already a 10% decrease in FDI projected for this year. What does that mean for prices, tax, or for businesses to operate, for all these things? So as you said, this cooperation is essential, and it needs this realignment to fill the gap. And Your Excellency, Maxime, I'll extend that to you. How does Russia see the current state of the global economy and its realigning itself when it comes to discussing this topic?
Thank you. Today we face fundamental changes in the global economic landscape. The world shifts to multipolarity. The effectiveness is always about finding a balance between interests of foreign partners and local businesses. This balance sometimes fails. Multilateral trading system is in the crisis. The world is witnessing attempts to create new trade regulation systems which are in conflict with the rules under the WTO. These steps already led to a degradation in the global energy and food sectors. It has affected the most vulnerable consumers worldwide. The increase of import duties, the spread of green protectionism, the subsidy race may provoke new protectionist measures in the world. We should collectively protect the multilateral trading system with the WTO and its rules in its core. We should stand against protectionism under the guise of national security, environmental, or any similar reasons. But we cannot sit and wait for the WTO to get back on track. In order to realign with the current state of the global economy, we built up trade relations on a bilateral basis, gradually expand the geography of free trade agreements. The agreements between the Eurasian Economic Union and Iran is ratified, finalizing agreement with the Emirates, Indonesia, and Mongolia. To maintain the stability of trade, we developed new logistics routes, the International Transport Corridor North-South and the Northern Sea route across the Russian Arctic. These projects will give a boost to investment in infrastructure in partner countries. We aim to work with partners who share a constructive approach and make decisions based on the long-term interests of their people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just to check, I think we're close to running out of time, and I didn't get through all the questions, but please let me know if I do have more time to continue. But let's at least end, on looking forward. So, Nanli, I'd like to ask you, how crucial are regional investment frameworks for enhancing regional integration and sustainable development moving forward?
Thank you. Before I answer this question, I just want to say the whole transition to digital economy is also very critical. I hear a lot of insights already. I just want to point out that the global trade now is being shifting from manufacturing goods to digital services. And digital services is more than the manufacturing goods. If you look at it, more than 60% is on the global digital services. So if US is talking about the deficit in manufactured goods, but if you look at the multinationals they have, from Meta to Google to Amazon, if you calculate all these digital services provided, it's actually much, much more, right? So we're seeing this drastic change happening, and in the whole digital economy space, again, it's US and China are now really concentrating, in fact, particularly in the AI field, right? Which is where our report will look at this year, is how do we invest for a digital future. And in this regard, when I speak to the regional cooperation, I think that's also very important to outline the regional integration and regional frameworks role. That really reduce fragmentation, reduce barriers, and build up investor confidence for external investors. We did a survey this year for investors on the whole investing in digital economy side, right? If you look at the traditional incentives, and then also you look at the determinants of why international companies investing in these frontier markets, the consideration slightly changed. They are no longer just looking at efficiency and cost anymore. They are looking more into these whole governance issues, from data governance, right, to how investor protection and also support and the ease of doing business. So the regulatory side is very important. Again, this report we will launch in June. We'll have all this detailed analysis. And we also work a lot with regional institutions, from ASEAN to AFCFTA. We work with these regional institutions to develop regional investment report. We've been launching ASEAN Regional Investment Report for the last 10 years, looking at regional investment landscape, opportunities, and challenges, right? And we helped, we're supporting AFCFTA to look at how we strengthen those provisions related to investment. So these are the areas we see that regional institutions can really play a strong role to pave the way for better regional integration, for easier investor access and entry, and also reduce the cost of doing business. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That's a really good point. I think that is a very effective countermeasure in terms of digitization, really bridging the gap for gaps in trade that might cost higher. That is a direction that a lot of people across industries will be looking at globally, to be able to remedy this effect. And I think also with the representation that we have on stage, that it's also looking at developing economies, emerging economies and such, to work together to collectively influence the future architecture of global trade and investment. So Your Excellency Moteke Seka, can you expand on that, of how that cooperation looks like in terms of working together for building the global future?
Apparently it looks like
sorry again, I think just to move the mic closer.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
It looks like we don't have any option but to cooperate. If you look at what is happening currently, it's becoming a great cause for concern for everybody, because the global financial architecture and trade architecture has to work within the context of a coordinated approach. Because if you don't have member countries working in a globalized set of rules, then we are heading for trouble, because how to call it, no other country can do it alone. We have to work in that kind of a global cooperation to make sure that we take it to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to also for final thoughts, I'd like, on that same vein in terms of cooperation, Your Excellency Wamkele, can you as well share, what your views are in terms of whether it's digitization, whether it's cooperation, or going hand in hand, how you see these aspects remedying, the policies, these trade impacts that we've been discussing, today in terms of global trade?
Well, thank you again. I think what's clear is that, as the minister was saying next to me, the multilateral trading system has been weakened and undermined by the measures that have been introduced over the last few days, but also historically through the weakening of the appellate body of the WTO. So we can no longer rely on the multilateral trading system as an anchor for global trade. We now have to look at other instruments, and you mentioned some of them, regional and bilateral cooperation. In our case, we now have a trade agreement that has 49 state parties with a view to liberalizing intra-Africa trade and liberalizing intra-Africa investment. It is a very important development in terms of cooperation with our partners, because it enables the continent of Africa to develop relations, whether it's investment, trade relations, on the basis of a single rule book that 49 countries will be applying, let's say in respect to a third party with which we want to enter into cooperation arrangements. And we already have a number of countries with whom we have entered into cooperation arrangements, trade facilitation, investment facilitation arrangements. And in the context of those arrangements, we identify what are the key drivers of the bilateral relationship for it to be mutually beneficial from an economy standpoint. If we talk, for example, about manufacturing, the automotive sector, pharmaceuticals, even the digital economy, we have a protocol on digital trade. How do we leverage that protocol on digital trade in a partnership with a third country to ensure that we see higher flows of investment in digital public infrastructure so that Africa's digital economy can continue to grow? So I think what we are going to see increasingly is a proliferation of bilateral and regional arrangements across the world in the absence of the multilateral trading system as an anchor for us to trade through it. This is the only lever that we have to navigate these very, very difficult times. And I believe that many countries, particularly developing countries, of the global south, if you want, here we have an opportunity to accelerate the development of these relationships so that the disruption that is taking place now does not permanently disadvantage the flows of trade and the flows of investment into our regions of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's a great way to end it. Very good and a comprehensive answer. And just a final question, I'll extend this to anyone who would like to answer it, but do you see the shifts that are taking place now as a temporary shift? Or, as you were speaking about, Your Excellency, do you see that there's going to be that realignment that's going to be more long-term and permanent and new partners? Whoever would like to answer that one, please. Dr. Sultan, maybe? Sorry. it
question to
working?
me. Sorry, sound is really bad.
I know it is. I'm
We
sorry.
even don't hear what
We
you're
can hear
asking
you now,
about.
for
It's
sure.
about the whole policy shift, maybe?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was just
Yeah.
asking if do you see this as a temporary situation in terms of realignment, leaning towards digitalization and such, or?
Actually, Tajikistan itself did not change its policy in terms of the trade or investment partners. Russia and China has been leading the list of the partners of Tajikistan, both in terms of the trade and investment inflow. And in 2024, still these two countries were on the top of the list. But in 2024, we witnessed some change in the policy of other actors. For example, in 2024, USA and the European countries, they increased their investment portfolio in the market of Tajikistan. So, and this is an impact of the policy shift globally from my point of understanding. And in the conditions of the increasing demand or competitions even for critical raw materials, which are needed for the green transition, the big countries are looking for the new partners. Indeed, the emerging economies like Tajikistan, which really has a big sources of such kind of critical raw materials, are being considered as a good partner to have access to such kind of critical minerals and materials. So at the same time, because of this policy shift, my understanding, Honorable Minister Reshetnikov told us about the sanctions politics against Russia, and my understanding that was the reason why the Russia also changed a little bit its policy, turning to the countries of the East, and we have been witnessing the increasing partnership of Russia with Central Asia countries. For the last 3 years, for example, the trade turnover between Tajikistan and Russia increased by 20%, while for the whole Central Asia it increased around 50%. So, another example of this kind of policy shift, my understanding, is a recent summit of the EU with Central Asia countries in Samarkand, where the President of the European Commission announced about the EU willingness to invest 12 billion euro to Central Asia region, including 3 billion to transport sector, 2.5 billion euro for critical raw materials, 6.4 billion to energy sector, and 100 million euro to internet connection and digitalization. 4 areas, and we see why these areas are important: critical raw materials, energy sector, and etc. And there is one more thing I would like to highlight, is a political maybe aspect of this issue too. We have been witnessing also the political interest of the key or big countries to Central Asia region. While, for example, since 2017-18 until 2020-22, we had the format of C+1. I mean, the Central Asia plus US, Central Asia plus Russia, plus China, Japan, and the Gulf countries also. So those meetings were held in the format of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. But since 2022, the formats has been changed, and all these formats, all these meetings now are being led by the presidents. This is an increasing political interest of other regions to Central Asia. Coming back to trade turnover, the political aspect of that, also the good example, I think, that the relationship between Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. When in 2016, the political administration had been changed in Uzbekistan and the relationship became better, we had increased our economical or trade turnover from 2016 up to now by 50 times. It was only $12 million. Now it is more than $600 million. And the leaders of the country instructed us, the team, to increase this turnover until 1 billion USD. So I mean that all these kind of the policy shifts, they have basically two sides of the coin, political and economical. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think you just demonstrated that this is more permanent than short-term effect. Thank you so much. And with that, we are out of time. And I just want to thank Your Excellencies and esteemed guests for for speaking to us about this. I think it was really insightful, and we wouldn't have gotten the chance to hear this insight. So I appreciate your time, and thank you, the audience, for paying attention.